It's funny. When you buy um, a really complicated piece of machinery, like a car or a high-end computer or even just a moderately confusing espresso maker, it always comes with a manual.
Oh, yeah. Like a thick indexed little booklet.
Right. A very clear guide telling you exactly how to operate the system, how to maintain it, and, what absolutely not to do if you want to avoid voiding the warranty.
And if the engine starts making some weird noise or the pressure valve gets stuck, you just, I don't know, flip to page 42. You have a troubleshooting guide. It's actually a very comforting safety net.
It really is. But when it comes to navigating a career or dealing with wildly difficult people or just trying to figure out the mechanics of your own happiness, there is no index manual in the glove box for human nature.
Unfortunately not. I mean, we're all just kind of winging it most of the time.
Exactly. But today, we are actually opening a text that attempts to be exactly that kind of manual.
Huh.
We are diving into Shuofeng's Intermediate Life Treasure Book, Part 1.
Yeah, and it is a fascinating read.
It is. And our mission in this deep dive is to extract the core principles of this pretty dense collection of philosophical wisdom and really translate them into practical insights that you, listening right now, can use to find some clarity in what is honestly an overwhelmingly noisy world.
And I think what makes this text so compelling isn't just that it tackles these, sweeping cosmic concepts, but how it anchors those concepts in highly specific and frankly uncomfortably accurate behavioral advice.
Comfortably accurate is a great way to put it.
Yeah, it really demands that we step back and seriously interrogate our everyday assumptions about, well, what success looks like, how we take action, and even the fundamental nature of reality itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because since you listening are likely already familiar with the foundational concept of the Tao,
Yeah.
what makes Weffen's approach here so gripping isn't necessarily how he defines it, but how ruthlessly he diagnoses our failure to align with it.
Right, that diagnosis starts with a pretty stark reminder of what we are actually dealing with here. The text describes the Tao as formless, emotionless, and nameless.
Just completely intangible.
Exactly. It's this underlying mechanism that runs the sun and the moon, yet it is entirely invisible and inaudible. The text even notes that if you were to somehow taste it, it would be, quote, bland to the mouth.
Which doesn't sound very appealing to our modern, highly stimulated brains.
No, not at all. But it makes this incredibly visceral observation about our relationship to it. It says, people are in the Tao, and the Tao is in people, like fish are in water, and water is in fish.
Oh, man. That fish in water metaphor it shifts the perspective entirely.
Because the fish doesn't even know it's wet, right?
Exactly. I like to think of the Tao almost like the tectonic plates beneath the earth, or maybe like a Wi-Fi signal.
Oh, I like the tectonic plates analogy.
Yeah, because, you can't see them, and you can build a house however you want on the surface. But if you ignore the fault lines and the underlying physics of the earth, eventually that reality is going to tear your house down.
You definitely cannot negotiate with tectonic plates.
Right. You can't bribe gravity. You can't argue with it.
And yet we constantly try to negotiate with them, don't we? We really do. What's fascinating here is how the text categorizes human reactions to this invisible current. It actually describes three types of scholars.
Okay, lay them out for us.
So the top scholar hears of the Tao and practices it diligently. They get it. The middle scholar hears of it and is essentially, well, lukewarm.
Like they treat it as an option.
Yeah, they have to leave it. They lean on it only when it's convenient for them.
But it's the third type that really holds up a mirror to modern society, I think.
The lower scholar, yeah. When the lower scholar hears of the Tao, they laugh loudly. In fact, the text explicitly notes, if they don't laugh, it's not the Tao.
If they don't laugh, it's not the Tao. I mean, that is just such a brilliant distillation of human arrogance.
It really is.
Laughter in that context is the ultimate defense mechanism of the ego.
Oh, absolutely.
We want things we can measure, things we can optimize and conquer. If you tell a highly driven, aggressively metric-focused person that an invisible, tasteless, formless current is actually dictating their success, their immediate reaction is going to be derisive laughter. It threatens their whole sense of control.
And the text warns us about this exact tendency, to overcomplicate our lives just to feel like we're in the driver's seat. It states that the great Tao is very flat and smooth, but people naturally prefer to take shortcuts.
Because the smooth path feels too simple.
Right. We love complex solutions because they make us feel intelligent. We love feeling like we are outsmarting the system. So as you listen to this, I think it's worth asking yourself, are you genuinely following the smooth path? Or are you constantly forcing a shortcut that just ends up causing twice as much friction?
That's a great question to sit with. And if we accept that we are living on top of these shifting tectonic plates, the obvious next question is, how do we actually interact with that current without our house falling down?
Which brings us to a concept that honestly breaks a lot of modern hyperproductive brains.
Wu-wei.
Yes, wu-wei. The paradox of doing nothing, yet leaving nothing undone.
Which sounds completely impossible when you first hear it.
It sounds like an excuse to take a nap, but it is actually the ultimate strategic paradox. The text constantly emphasizes softness over hardness, arguing that the weak overcomes the strong. And the mechanical model it uses for this, the ultimate example, is water.
Right.
The text says, "The highest good is like water. Water benefits all things and does not compete."
We often mistake water for being passive, but water is relentless.
There really is.
It doesn't try to punch a hole straight through a granite boulder. That takes too much energy. It flows around it, it finds little cracks, and it patiently wears it down over centuries. It naturally seeks the lowest places, the places, as the text says, that everyone else detests. And by doing so, it sustains all life in the ecosystem.
And by contrast, the text warns really heavily against the opposite approach. The path of forcing outcomes and just indulging in excess. It explicitly states that gold and jade filling the hall cannot be kept.
You can't hoard your way to harmony.
Exactly. And it goes even deeper into sensory overload. It notes that the 5 colors blind the eye, the 5 scents deafen the ear, and the 5 flavors ruin the palate.
Mechanically, that makes perfect sense, especially today.
Oh, more than ever.
Think about it. If you blast your brain with maximum volume, infinite scrolling, and just these constant dopamine hits all day, you aren't enhancing your experience of life. You are literally degrading your sensory equipment.
You're numbing yourself.
Right. You are creating so much internal noise that you can no longer detect the subtle signals of the Tao. The Wi-Fi signal gets completely jammed.
To combat that exact degradation, the text offers what it calls the 3 treasures to hold on to. These are compassion, frugality, and not daring to be first in the world.
Okay, I have to push back on that last one.
I figured you might.
I mean, just for the sake of anyone listening who operates in the real world right now, if you are currently trying to advance your career, or maybe secure funding for a startup, or even just survive in a highly competitive market, hearing that a core treasure of life is not daring to be first sounds like terrible advice.
It sounds like a blueprint for getting completely walked over by people who do dare to be first.
Exactly. How is this not just a philosophical excuse for complacency or laziness?
Because it's not about giving up. It's actually about the physics of momentum. The text reveals a really profound strategic wisdom regarding how energy works in the world. It states, if you want to shrink something, you must first expand it. If you want to weaken it, you must strengthen it.
Okay, wait. Explain that mechanism. How does strengthening something actually weaken it?
Think of a pendulum. Or actually think of an over-leveraged financial market.
Okay.
If you want a pendulum to swing wildly to the left, you don't just push it left. You pull it all the way to the extreme right, build up all that potential energy, and let go. When the text says the weak overcomes the strong, it's pointing out that rigid things that are forced to their absolute maximum tension, invariably break. Flexible things survive the snapback.
So not daring to be first isn't about hiding in the back of the room.
No, not at all. It means not absorbing the initial massive friction of cutting through the wind. Think of racing. It's about drafting behind the leader, letting them exhaust all their resources against the resistance, and leveraging the natural momentum of the system.
Wow, that reframes it completely. It's about letting a system run its course to exhaustion, rather than fighting it at its absolute peak.
Exactly. The disaster isn't taking action itself. The disaster is acting out of unchecked desire and trying to force the river to flow backward. As the text puts it, there is no greater disaster than not knowing what is enough.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the physics of wu-wei, acting like water, understanding momentum, knowing what is enough, if that is the optimal way to operate, why are we all so universally terrible at it?
That is the million-dollar question.
And the text doesn't just leave this as some abstract mystery, right? It dives into a brutally specific psychology of human failure. It explicitly outlines the 8 flaws of people.
And let me tell you, these flaws are painfully recognizable in any office, any family, or social circle today.
What are some of them?
They include meddling in things that aren't your business, flattering people to gain favor, speaking without actually distinguishing right from wrong.
Oh, so just talking to hear yourself talk.
Pretty much. And gossiping about other people's evils and actively sowing discord to break up relationships.
Let's look at the mechanics of just one of those. Flattery. Why is flattering someone considered a fundamental flaw here?
Well, think about what flattery actually is.
Right, because mechanically, flattery requires you to intentionally disconnect from the truth of a situation in order to manipulate an outcome. It is a direct violation of wu wei.
Exactly. You are artificially forcing a relationship dynamic rather than letting it develop organically based on actual reality.
And that manipulation scales up disastrously.
It really does. The text actually pairs these 8 flaws with what it calls 4 troubles in managing affairs. These are essentially behavioral patterns that guarantee ruin when you have any level of authority.
I feel like a lot of managers need to hear this part.
Definitely. The 4 troubles are loving to make big reckless changes just for fame, usurping power out of greed, refusing to change when your faults are pointed out, which is just the total rejection of feedback, and finally, only accepting people who agree with you.
So if you take those 4 troubles, a leader who makes reckless changes just to put their stamp on things, hoards decision-making power, fires anyone who offers constructive criticism, and surrounds themselves entirely with yes men.
Sound familiar?
That is the exact step-by-step anatomy of a catastrophic corporate collapse. We literally see that exact story in the tech news every single month. It proves the architecture of human folly hasn't changed an inch in thousands of years.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text argues that falling into these flaws and troubles isn't just about making bad business decisions or being unpleasant to be around at a dinner party. It fundamentally alters your internal state.
How so?
Well, the text states, sorrow is no greater than a dead heart.
A dead heart. Meaning what a complete loss of emotional resonance because you've turned every single human interaction into a calculated mechanical transaction.
Precisely that. The text explains that engaging in chronic deceit, gossip, and power grabs builds what it explicitly calls a machine-like heart, a calculating, purely transactional mind.
Wow. A machine-like heart. That is such a striking phrase.
And the warning here is severe. A person with a machine-like heart cannot hold the Tao. Their internal frequency becomes entirely incompatible with the natural harmony of the universe.
And the stakes of that internal state are massive, aren't they? Because the text places an enormous emphasis on the power of the mind to actually generate our reality.
Yes, it has this incredibly striking line, "My life is up to me, not heaven. Heaven and hell are entirely created by the mind."
It even adds a specific note clarifying not to think heaven and hell are literally, biologically situated inside the physical heart, right?
Right, it's a metaphysical claim. It's arguing that your perception acts as a filter that constructs your entire reality. If you have a machine-like heart, you will literally construct a hellish, paranoid reality for yourself, regardless of your external wealth or status.
Your mind just builds the cage.
Exactly. And the text respects the vastness of the mind so much that it even addresses the subconscious. It actually categorizes dreams into 6 types.
Wait, really? 6 types of dreams?
Yeah, normal, nightmare, thinking, sleeping, joy, and fear.
So it doesn't view dreams as just random, meaningless neural firings.
Far from it. It treats them as spiritual manifestations. They are phenomena that show the mind actively processing past experiences and projecting future possibilities. It's an acknowledgement that the mind's reach extends far, far beyond our waking, logical, highly controlled thoughts.
So, if the cost of forcing our way through life and indulging in these flaws is ending up with a machine-like heart, how do we actually reverse that damage? What does it look like when a human being successfully operates this manual for life?
Well, the text maps this out through the ultimate archetypes of mastery, the sage and the immortal.
Okay, let's talk about the sage first.
The sage is the text's blueprint for someone who has entirely aligned with the Tao. The sage acts without striving. They teach without words. They do the heavy lifting, but they absolutely do not claim the credit.
Which again goes against everything we're taught about personal branding.
Completely. And it presents this beautiful paradox. The sage does not accumulate. The more they give to others, the more they have.
That's powerful. And the text also gets into the concept of immortals, mapping out 4 distinct levels, right? Human, earth, God, and heaven.
Yes, and there is a fascinating, almost cautionary note here. Below the human immortal is something called the ghost immortal.
The ghost immortal, that sounds kind of ominous.
It is. A bit. It's a brilliant mechanical explanation of a spiritual trap. The ghost immortal represents a state of consciousness that has achieved some level of cultivation, but remains entirely trapped by earthly grievances and attachments.
So they're just stuck.
Exactly. They are unable to transcend because they still cling to the logic of the physical world. To reach the higher states, human, earth, God, heaven, requires a total evolution of perspective. You have to realize the illusion of life and death itself.
That is a massive cognitive leap. I mean, how does the text justify calling life and death an illusion?
It states that life is the root of death and death is the root of life.
Yeah.
It challenges the reader to consider how we know the dead aren't simply being born somewhere else.
Oh, wow.
It frames existence as a continuous transforming cycle, much like the water we discussed earlier changing from solid ice to liquid and then to invisible vapor.
The essence remains, even as the form radically shifts.
Exactly. And when you internalize that mechanism, you lose the desperate, clinging fear of finality that drives so much of our toxic behavior.
Let me ask the practical question that always comes up with this level of philosophy, though. Does becoming a sage, or achieving this enlightened perspective, mean you have to completely detach from the world?
Like becoming a hermit.
Yeah, exactly. Do you just become an emotionless observer, totally insulated from the messiness of human joy, sorrow, and conflict? Because that doesn't sound like living.
This raises an important question, and honestly, it is the most dangerous misunderstanding of Eastern philosophy out there. The text's answer is a resounding no. Mastery is not about detachment, it is about perfect, frictionless engagement.
Frictionless engagement, I like that.
The text explicitly says the sage assists the natural course of all things. They do not ignore the ecosystem, they harmonize with it.
So the goal is adapting to the four seasons and regulating your joy and anger, not eliminating your emotions entirely.
Yes, it is about proportionality and flow. And this leads to perhaps the most powerful and practical point the text makes about where this cultivation is actually supposed to happen. It says, the mountains are only quiet, therefore learning the Tao is originally not in the mountains.
Oh, that completely flips the script on the whole guru on a mountaintop cliche.
It really does. It continues, cultivating secretly in the dusty world is the true great cultivation.
The dusty world.
Yes. Anyone can find peace when they are sitting alone in a perfectly quiet room with zero responsibilities and no one challenging their ego. But finding that stillness, maintaining wu wei, and avoiding a machine-like heart while you are actively navigating the messy, loud, complicated, dusty world of deadlines, family dynamics, and daily frustrations, that is the actual mark of mastery.
Anyone can be a Zen master in a sensory deprivation tank.
Exactly.
It's keeping your center when your flight is canceled, your inbox is overflowing, and someone is actively taking credit for your work that actually tests your alignment with the Tao.
That is the real test.
When you look at this entire roadmap, from understanding the invisible tectonic plates of the universe, to the physics of acting like water, to dismantling the flaws that build the toxic, machine-like heart, it all points to one immediate takeaway for your life right now. So what does this all mean?
Yeah, how do we apply it today?
For you, listening today, it means recognizing that you do not have to force every single outcome to be safe. It means understanding that true effectiveness comes from knowing when you have enough and utilizing the momentum of the world rather than constantly breaking yourself against it. It is about letting go of the desperate, exhausting need to control the river and learning instead how to navigate the current right in the middle of your dusty, chaotic life.
And as you step back into that chaotic current today, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought drawn directly from Zhu Feng's text.
Let's hear it.
The text makes a striking observation about human intellect. It says, to know you don't know is best. Not to know, but to think you know is a disease.
Wow. The disease of thinking you know.
Exactly. As you interact with your colleagues, your family, and your own internal narratives today, I invite you to examine your assumptions and ask yourself, where in your life might you be quietly suffering from the disease of absolute certainty?